the amount of good telling my story would do outweighed the fear I had of coming out publicly.
Eric Radford, Canadian Olympic champion. A career full of success and courage that goes beyond the ice. Eric left the small town of Red Lake, Ontario to pursue figure skating at the young age of 13. After partnering with fellow Northern Ontario skater Megan Duhamel in 2010, the pair never looked back.
It's Duhamel and Radford, the next Canadian pairs world champions.
They skated for 8 years together, winning 3 Olympic medals, 2 world championships, and 7 Canadian titles. But in 2014, Eric revealed a part of him that would inspire generations to come.
I think I realized I was gay when I hit puberty. It took me years to finally accept myself and my sexuality.
In a powerful blog post, Eric described the responsibility he felt to be the voice he didn't have growing up.
Allow my story to inspire other people by being myself. I think it's wonderful.
Winning gold at the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics makes Eric the first openly gay man from any country to win an Olympic gold medal at the Winter Games. Today, Eric has hung up his skates for now, but continues to be an advocate for LGBTQ+ athletes, working on the Canadian Olympic Committee's #OneTeam initiative. With Pride going virtual this year, I caught up with Eric online to see how he's being proud virtually. Eric Radford, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and happy Pride Month.
No, thank you. You too.
Appreciate that. So Pride Month unfortunately falls during a pandemic. What's your self-isolation situation been like during COVID-19?
Usually when I talk to people, I say that there have been a lot of ups and downs. And I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but I think that, there's days when I wake up and I'm like, wow, I feel good. I have a lot to do. I just look forward to getting things done. And then there's other days I wake up and it all seems gray and hopeless somehow. And I've actually started to notice, I think just with having nowhere to go, the weather just has been having such a strong impact on like my mood these days. But for the most part, I think that Luis and I, we've done a pretty good job of weathering it.
Let's take you back, since you have nowhere to go. Let's take you back to Red Lake, right? Shout out Northern Ontario. Red Lake, stand up. What are your memories of being there as a kid growing up?
I mean, I have a lot of great memories. It's a great place, to be a kid. Day after day out in the bush, building forts, playing kick the can with my friends, going down to Ray Hill Beach, once or twice a week. So, on the whole, there's a lot of great memories. And of course, there's some like difficult memories as well.
As kids, we have different realizations. When did you have the realization that you were gay?
I think as soon as I hit puberty and I started to like have attraction, that sort of sexual attraction, I remember kind of feeling that it was, towards guys instead of girls. And I had a lot of like shame and guilt with that. Like I thought that I was the only person in the whole world that felt like that and that there was something wrong with me. And of course it took a few years until I met another gay person in real life and realized that it wasn't extraordinary or weird. It was, completely normal.
So I understand that at times coming out can be a gradual process of coming out over time. How was it for you with family and friends?
It was definitely a process. The first person I came out to was one of my best girlfriends at the time. I think I was about 16 or 17. And then I can remember the second person I came out to was my best friend, Dylan Moskovich, who also ended up being one of my biggest rivals and friends throughout my skating career. And then after that, I came out to my family, and then I guess a wider circle of friends, people at the rink, my coach. But it was definitely over a period of a couple of years.
some of the fear, I'm sure, coming out would be the repercussions, like bullying. Was that part of your experience?
I mean, being back up in Red Lake, I was bullied a lot, and it wasn't necessarily for being gay, but I think that I was definitely different than all the other boys. I mean, I did a completely different sport that was for quote unquote girls, a girls sport. And I think that my mannerisms at that time were a lot different as well, and it just made me an easy target. I think later on, after I became just more comfortable with my own sexuality and I had come out to like my family and friends, I was feeling more confident in myself and just more settled with my sexuality, so that if somebody did call me a name or something like that, like it never shook me the way that it did before when I was just so insecure with who I was. But I mean, there was definitely moments along the way where in and throughout high school, there would be the odd, derogatory word or just bad words or name calling or, I remember there was an incident on a bus that happened, and I used to sit at the back of the bus with like all the cool kids and where all the hockey players would sit, and then they didn't like me very much, and I remember getting like, I was forced to sit at the front of the bus for the rest of the year. Just like those kind of stupid high school things like that. But of course, I still remember them now.
How did they make you feel at the time? And as you reflect on them, how do you feel about those experiences now?
I mean, at the moment, it was humiliating. It was embarrassing. I felt ashamed. It would make me wish that I could change myself, that I could just not be the way I was. And now at the same time, when I look back, it's like those difficult times made me stronger. They gave me more resolve. And, now I can see where it was coming from and that it wasn't me, it was them,
Let's talk about a girl from Northern Ontario. Megan, you guys paired up and you had so much success, but it seems from the outside looking in, so much chemistry. What was that partnership like for you?
Megan and I were best friends when we met, and we loved skating to an extreme degree, a very special degree. Finding our chemistry was one of our biggest themes of our career. And I think that, and it's something that I've talked about before, in figure skating and especially in pairs and dance, that male-female traditional chemistry is what is traditionally sought after and what is traditionally what's the most popular for the judges in some ways. And Megan and I, that wasn't our shtick, that wasn't our story, and we had to find a different dimension or a different flavor of chemistry for ourselves.
When we last saw you at an Olympics 4 years ago, you hadn't come out as a gay athlete.
I really felt like I couldn't be my true self at those games.
So let's fast forward to 2014. Sochi Olympics, and athletes, you're at the precipice of your sport. Most just want to focus and make the main thing, and you decide, I'm ready to tell my story. I'm ready to live in my 100% authentic truth. Why and really how did you do that in that moment?
Well, leading up, just before the 2014 Olympics, I was approached to come out publicly. And I chose not to. And to choose not to was actually really difficult for me because I felt like I was succumbing to fear. I was a coward for not being able to be my true self. But as you just said, I had spent my entire life trying to make it to that moment, and I didn't want that moment to be trumped by my sexuality. I wanted that moment to be about my hard work and everything that I've accomplished in the sport to get to that point. After that, later on in 2014, in December, Megan and I were in the middle of a spectacular season, and I was given the opportunity to tell my story, and it was really like an instinct or a feeling where first of all, I felt ready. I felt comfortable enough to tell my story, and I felt that telling my story, the amount of good telling my story would do outweighed the fear I had of coming out publicly.
And hindsight, looking back at that decision, do you agree?
I was 100%. It was 100% the right choice to make. I have and had no regrets. I feel very lucky that I've been able to use my success in the sport that I love to trying to reach beyond, just the accomplishment of what I've done in skating, and in order to inspire and maybe make things easier for not just younger athletes, but LGBTQ youth in general.
Now, with just a few days to go before the opening ceremony, there's a rainbow hanging over Sochi. The pressure is growing on the International Olympic Committee to deal with Russia's anti-gay stance.
Your sexuality is not a choice, it's who you are. It's not a decision you make or a lifestyle, but yet because of it, you have to make all of these difficult choices. You had another one, Russia, the Olympics there, which many people in the LGBTQ plus community felt they were uncomfortable with them being in Russia, with going because of their long, terrible history of anti-LGBTQ plus laws and practices. You were then given a choice on whether or not to compete. How did you handle that scenario?
Well, jumping back to my other story, when I initially had made the decision that, okay, I was going to do it. I was going to come out before Sochi, and it was the right thing to do. And it was the first time where I called my parents, and for the first time ever, they were very hesitant and they were very worried, and they weren't supportive. They've always been relentlessly supportive of me or any choice that I've made along the way. And they feared for my safety. And I think, I didn't understand to what degree those laws would be upheld, or if if you did do something, you were going to end up in jail, or I didn't know, and it was there was some apprehension, and it was a sort of difficult scenario to navigate for a while, but my experience in Russia was totally positive. I didn't feel any anti-gay energy, or I didn't feel any hate towards me. All of the volunteers were extremely inviting and polite and nice, and I remember leaving being pleasantly surprised by that whole aspect of the Olympic Games there.
Given that fear that was real for many, the fact that you wrote a blog post about your experience is even more courageous and powerful. When you sat down to write that, what was going through your mind?
I think it was a similar feeling to when I came out. It's really just, I feel that I can make a difference by sharing my story. I also think that any sort of exposure, as a gay athlete or, public figure, the more they talk about it, the less scary it becomes, the smaller the unknown is for people that haven't had a lot of exposure to the LGBT community or their issues. So I think the more we talk about it and the more that I can share my story, the better things can be afterwards.
Well, if you're looking for exposure, you got it in 2018, in the Pyeongchang Olympics, on the podium multiple times. It's some serious exposure. You get the bronze, but also the gold in the team, so you become the first openly gay athlete in the Winter Olympics to win gold. It's crazy. It's something that you get introduced to people, and that's what they're going to say for the rest of your life. What's that experience like for you?
It makes me feel so proud, and it's something that I didn't even realize until I think after I had my medal, and I was looking at Twitter and I kind of saw that written there, and I was like, wow, to kind of get to have a little piece of history, and to be the first. It's something really special, and it's something I cherish, and it's something I love, and I honestly, I don't take it for granted. It was a lot of hard work, but I feel very lucky to have accomplished that. And again, it's just added to giving me a bigger voice to use for something beyond just trying to win medals in skating.
With that comes a bit of responsibility to continue that momentum. Do you consider yourself a role model?
That's a kind of funny question to answer. I guess, yes, I would be a role model. I've achieved success, and I do have, a fairly large following on social media, and I have this platform where I have, a bigger voice than maybe I would have if I hadn't accomplished what I had. And it always brings me back to Spider-Man, and when his uncle says, with great power comes great responsibility. And it kind of, I kind of take that saying to heart, and I've been given an opportunity to maybe make some change, or to push the ideas and the social awareness around LGBT forward. And I actually take great pleasure in it. I really like it.
Well, let me ask the question this way. Have you heard from young gay men, gay women, young skaters that you've inspired?
I have, and that's the most amazing feeling, and like the amazing reward of it all, and to just get a little anonymous message saying thank you for telling your story. It has inspired me. That feels, it's amazing. It's like winning the Olympics all over again.
Take us back to that bus where young Eric is walking to the front. If you could say something to that kid now, what would you say to him?
Aside from just letting him know that, it's all gonna be okay. And maybe to, quarantine somewhere more exotic than in Montreal in 2020. I think it would probably be something along the same lines of your typical message of just never stop following your dreams. And it's something that, I did. I never did stop following my dreams, and that's what allowed me to achieve what I did. But to just really, really, hold his hands and look him right in the eye and be like, don't give up. Because there was definitely moments along the way where I think I almost did. And, through the helps of friends and family, I didn't. So I owe them a lot. But yeah, just let them know it's going to be okay, and to never give up.
Let's take it full circle. Go back to Red Lake, where you have a street named after you. Eric Radford Way, which lets you know that you're legit, you're real at this point. First of all, if that was me, I would just want to find everyone who bullied me and be like, have you driven on my street recently? But you're clearly not bitter at all. You're actually making people's lives better. But what's that like for you to have that entire scenario literally come full circle?
It's really like a dream come true. So much happened that I have a pretty big imagination, and I did have big dreams, but I'd say what has actually happened in my life, it may even extend beyond those. And those little, those things having a street named after me, and I got to celebrate Pride. There was a Pride parade up in my hometown, something I would have never, ever imagined happening. It's just, I just try to, be in the moment when they're happening. I don't take them for granted at all, and just, appreciate that they're happening. And I feel like that's all I can do. And one story that I should share is I went back up to Red Lake for a wedding. And I think it was either just after 2014 or even maybe just before. And one of the bullies was there. He was at the wedding. And he actually came up to me and he was like, you know what, Eric, I just want to apologize for treating you like crap, you know, when we were younger. I was young and immature and I didn't know any better. And that touched me deeply, you know, and it was a big moment of vindication for me. And it was really big of him to, I think, come and tell me that as well. So there's been some really nice moments along the way like that, and it made it all worth it.
So I'm going to assume that you're not going to be on the front float of the Red Lake Pride Parade this year.
No.
But what are your Pride plans? What is Pride going to look like for you this year?
I think it's probably going to be very quiet and intimate, I guess. I would probably just get together with my friends and maybe we'll have a barbecue or something and have a little bit of a celebration. But I'll definitely be on social media and following any stories and you know, any opportunities I get to, you know, tell my story or, you know, talk about Pride and what it means to me, then I'll be taking advantage of all of those opportunities.
I mean, Pride, that word, it's become known for the parade, but it really signifies much more for you. Quite simply, what does Pride mean?
I think it's how we all get to celebrate our differences and what makes us us. And I feel like there's a huge wave of awareness with this kind of, I don't know, going across the world right now. And I think that, you know, of course, it's about LGBTQ like issues and exposure and the history and everything we fought for to get rights and all of that. But I think it has sort of extended beyond that now, and it's about celebrating being the youest you can be.
Well said. Well, I know based on your story, there were times where it didn't feel like Red Lake was proud of you, but certainly Red Lake and the entire country, the entire LGBTQ plus allies community is really proud of you right now, the work you continue to do. So thank you so much. Keep doing it.
Thank you very much.